So one more slide here before we get to the content. If you don't know Buynomics yet, if you haven't spoken with us before, we're a software provider for better pricing and revenue management decisions. Our key distinguisher is really the Buynomics method, our virtual shopper model or virtual consumer model, which really is the most comprehensive demand simulation that we know of. It produces best-in-class accuracy in forecasts. It is super fast because it's software-based, and in the end, there's a strong business case to be made by using it. So if you want to join large Fortune 500 companies who are already clients of ours in this journey, then do let us know, and I'll be happy to leave my contact here at the end. So Ingo, I think it's over to you for the exciting part of today.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone for joining today. As Paul said, we're moving a little bit to the holiday season, so we hope we have something interesting for you that's worth your time. And as Paul said, always feel free to ask questions. The title is a bit provocative. I think we'll keep up with that during the webinar, just to provoke a discussion. And I hope that you find it interesting and you learn something new, ideally. And also, if you have any questions, just post them. I'm happy to discuss anything towards the end of the webinar. I think we'll take a broader look at price elasticities, start very simply, and then get a bit more detailed. And as Paul said, we'll highlight a bit about the advantages, but also talk about the disadvantages of the concept. And to get started, and that's also something that we're doing over across the past webinars. So we look at new technology and how they can be applied to pricing. And we asked ChatGPT, that's something we occasionally do, and we'll try to figure out what's the best use for it in pricing. I think this is one of the prime examples of where it responded better than we expected. So we asked it, and having the topic of today in mind, tell us a joke about price elasticity. And I find this one. So why did the demand curve break up with the price elasticity? Because it felt too inelastic and couldn't handle the lack of responsiveness. I found this better than expected. So it looks like ChatGPT is really good in telling jokes. At least that's one that was favorable on LinkedIn. All right, with this, let's get a bit more serious in the topic. And I think price elasticities for us and you, I suppose, as well, and everyone in the profession of pricing and revenue management, it's a term that's very present. And I think one of the things that we observed lately is that it has become even more present. So if we looked, and this is an article from last year, that if you look at the C-level, at earnings reports, quarterly earnings calls, and so on, that the term price elasticity is growing in importance. This is something we observe. So what we are all doing as a profession seems to be becoming more relevant. This is, of course, driven to some extent by the shift in inflation from a couple of years with very low elasticity to, in the last year, a phase where price elasticity, where inflation has substantially increased, and we're now seeing the inflation rate going back, which both the increase in inflation and the downturn or the reduction in inflation, two things that are, of course, of high interest and relevance for everyone in the pricing and revenue management field. And they often require different or a range of actions. If costs increase, most companies also need to increase their prices to some extent. And we're now seeing that many companies are also including other measures like pack architecture changes, working more with promotions, as they see that in some cases they have increased prices maybe too much. And the question is how to deal with that. And for some of these things, price changes, promotion to some extent, but pack price architecture not so much. Price elasticities are a useful instrument. And I think, Paul, we have one question here to the audience on the relevance or the prevalence of elasticities in their daily work. where we just want to do a very quick survey to get an understanding of where everyone is. Do I need to do anything or?
No, I'll launch the questionnaire now. So the question is your company discussing price elasticities more than a year ago, which is when this chart ends? And we see back then it was like a huge upward trend, big gain, almost sevenfold on earnings calls. We tried to find actually a new version of this, but we're not really able to replicate the new data, and we didn't really want to pay for a subscription here for this data source. So we'll ask the audience today, and would be interested to see what the results are. We have only 60% that have participated so far. So if you want to add to that, just please click to make your voice heard. We're at 70%. Couple of more would be great, and then we have a good sentiment of the audience today.
Do we
give it 5 more seconds, and
then I need to stop it, or can you do it?
No, I'll do it. I think that's everyone who's not shy to participate today. So I'll end the poll here and share the results actually. So quite interesting. Ingo, most people say it's even more discussed than a year ago. 60% say so. Some say it stayed the same. So maybe that's the ones that already had been talking about it for quite a bit. And then actually some people are saying only 1 in 7 or so is saying that it's actually less than a year ago. I don't know how Ingo, did you expect something similar?
Yeah, I would say like 60% saying it's more relevant than a year ago. And that's I think in line with what we hear when we talk to our customers. So this I think this highlights the point. And if we go back, how to Freigabe beenden? How to?
Yeah, I'll stop it here.
Okay. It's still there. Okay. Yeah, I think what it means is essentially if we look at the curve that it's going further up. So the topic has become more relevant, which I think is good and also interesting for us as a field. So it makes sense to dig a bit deeper. And we want to take just 1 or 2 minutes to maybe go half a step back and talk about why we actually have it. I mean, there's I would say like maybe naive or a basic understanding of why we're talking about price elasticities. But the question is, why do we actually have them, or what do we actually want to understand? What we actually want to understand, and if you disagree, please put it in the chat, and we'll discuss it towards the end. Is we have an offer. We have super simplified with 3 products, ABC. We have an audience, for example, our shoppers that visit a retailer where we sell our products, or that visit our website where we sell via our website, and they have different preferences, they are willingness to pay, for example, and based on that, they make choices between these products ABC, and here highlighted by the color of these people here, the red ones by the product A, the red product, blue ones B, green C. And if we, for example, then change the price in these products, which we see on the right side, we see that with increasing price, fewer people will buy a certain product. That produces the demand curve. And if we have the demand curve, of course, we can compute most of the things we're interested in pricing, like revenue, profit, market share, everything that we care about. And what we can't see here really on the slide is that there are also, of course, interdependencies between these products. If I increase the price, let's say, of product A, then I will probably sell more of product B, sell more of product B, C. So these are all interdependent. And all of this, we kind of want to understand to make good decisions in our pricing. So the better we're able to predict or anticipate how the market or our shoppers will react to changes in our price or other changes in our products, the better we will make our decisions. And the question is, how are we actually doing this? This looks simple in this example, but of course, as we all know from our day-to-day work, it gets complicated quite quickly. And I would say the simplest way to think about it is, we all know this, here is the demand function. We just put it here so to just as a quick refresher what it means. So we have price, and depending on the price, we have our sales, low price, high sales, high price, low sales. And what this actually means, if we take these different people here from the previous page and line them up by their maximum willingness to pay. So this one to the very right has the highest willingness to pay, and if this one doesn't, he will be the last one to buy. The next one will be the next one to buy, and so on. And this one, the first one to the very left, will only buy at the very lowest price. And what this means is that if we have a price here, P1, that everyone, all of these, this blue people here on the right side, they will buy the product because their willingness to pay is higher than the current price. And all the people on the left side have a willingness to pay that is below the price, and they will not buy the product at the price P1. And what the price elasticity now tries to capture are the dynamics of the system. So if we want to understand, if we, let's say, increase the price from this P1 to the P new, or if we, for example, also could think about reducing the price, we want to capture these dynamics in a very simple number. And the one that is really established is the price elasticity. And it's defined as, in terms of comparing the percentage change in sales with the percentage change in price. So in this case here, let's say we have a 1% increase in price. So we go from here to here, 1%, and we lose 2% in sales. Then the price elasticity is the percentage change in sales divided by the percentage change in price. And in this example here, it gives us the -2. So that means we have a price elasticity of -2. And if you compare that number to maybe your price elasticities you see in your day-to-day life work, then is probably roughly in the range of what most of us will see in their actual work. So this is like a reasonable number, and it sort of captures how strong demand reacts to price changes. High price elasticity means demand reacts very strongly to price changes. Low price elasticity, and when I say low, I mean close to zero elasticity, means there's less of a reaction. And just in general terms, if there's low elasticity, it tends to make more sense to increase the price because you lose few sales. Whereas if you have a high elasticity, you can think, for example, about price reductions because you gain a lot of sales from reducing the price. And I think what many would like to live in a world where they have very low base elasticities, like for the regular price at which they sell their product, but have a high, for example, promotion elasticity. So when they reduce the price in a promotion, they gain a lot of sales. So this is, I think, the general concept. And one of the, let's say, more nice features of it is if we live in a very simple world where we only look at one product, so there's no interaction between different products, and we know the price elasticity of the product everywhere at all prices, then it's really easy to compute the profit optimal price, to compute the price at which revenue is maximized, do all of these things. Because in the profit optimum, so the price that maximizes the profit, so here the area between price and cost times sales, this is optimized always if the condition is satisfied, margin times price elasticity is -1. So for example, if your price elasticity is -2, as in the previous example, your profit optimal margin is 50%. So that's pretty straightforward. And also from this, we know that if we have a price elasticity of -1, so corresponding to a margin of 100%, then this optimizes the revenue. So simple enough, one simple example here. So we have our price elasticity of -2, our unit costs are 100, then the profit optimal price with a margin of 50% is 200. So if we live in this world where we know elasticities everywhere, we don't have interaction between products, then it's really, really easy to optimize the pricing. So this is both good and bad. I would say good because it's easy, bad because in this world, there isn't really a need for pricing or revenue growth management professionals. So luckily for us, I think we live in a bit more complex world, and complexity comes actually very quickly. And this here is an example that's based on real data. So we have if you look at this, product prices in a promotion, the product costs around €3. I think in reality it's €2.99. And then we have base prices first at €6, I think again €5.99, and somewhere here around €5. So we had a price increase roughly from €5 to €6, and we have these promotion prices at €3. And now it's already not so easy what the price elasticity of this product is, because one feature of if you have, for example, a linear demand function, if we ignore the promotion prices and we have the prices here around €5 and €6, and we saw when we increased the price from 5 to 6 that we lost certain sales, that gives us this regression or this trend line here that goes through these data points. And this has a price elasticity at €6 of -4.8, which is already very high. And the same linear curve, because in a linear demand function, the price elasticity is different at every price point. The same curve has a price elasticity of -0.7 only if it's at the €3 mark here. So it's not really easy if you have a linear demand function to say the price elasticity of a product is X, because it's really, really different for all of these different data points. And also what's already different is if you run a promotion, let's say at these €3 here, and you do this starting at €6 or at €5, the promotion elasticity, which is computed between the non-promoted price and the promoted price, varies between -2.2. And if you compute from the 6, it gives you 3.3 roughly. So that already the range of promotion elasticities differs massively depending on where you start the promotion. Do you count the promotion starting at a point of €6 or €5? Makes a huge difference in your promotion elasticities. So whenever someone gives you just a single number for your elasticity, it's really not clear what that means, because that's the way most of these elasticities are computed. They come from some linear regression if it's based on empirical sales data. It really, really differs depending on where you compute the elasticity. In this example, if it's at €6, it's about -4.8. If you compute it at €3, it's -0.7. So huge range. So elasticity, saying that this product has an elasticity of X is really not very helpful, because you always have to say at what price, and it can be massively different depending on where you start. And it gets even worse. So again, the same product have an elasticity of -2. If you just change this product at the current price, if you promote the product, we already looked at this example, elasticity can be much higher because of the extra promotion effect, the sales reaction can be much higher. Also, this is an important effect if you not only change the price of a single product. We said if we live in a world where products don't depend on what other products do, then price elasticity is a really powerful tool. However, in reality, of course, we all know this, products really depend on each other. And if you have a portfolio, for example, with different pack sizes, and if you increase all of them in a similar way, then you see that your price elasticity is much, much lower, because the alternatives to for people, for example, who previously bought product A, if you also increase B and C, are also less attractive because they were increased. So the price elasticity of the product already changes. And of course, if you then not only make changes to the price, but you also change the product, for example, you replace product C by a product D, which is slightly different, maybe has a different size. This also can have a strong effect on the elasticity. And again, if you then also not only replace the product, but also change the size of this product A, this again might have an influence on the price elasticity. So we see already that reality is much more complex than what you can capture in the single number, the single price elasticity number. And of course, already hinted to that, price elasticity compares sales volume percentage change in sales with a percentage change in price. It cannot capture many of the other things that are relevant. For example, behavioral pricing, So if we think about something like a price threshold, where we have sort of not a continuous function here, but we have a jump in demand, then we already see that this can have a massive impact that's not very well captured by price elasticities. Likewise, if we change features in a product, there isn't really a way to deal with that by a price elasticity. And also what we sometimes see in practice that people try to capture a price elasticity, or like say a product has a high elasticity or low elasticity by some scoring mechanism where they say, okay, products with a high price or products that people buy very frequently are more sensitive. We also see that these things don't work that well in practice. So all of this, what we said, that both the elasticity is a very useful concept in the sense that once you know it, it's really easy to work with it and optimize prices. But you also see as soon as you have more than one product and reality is a bit more complex, you also have competitors who might react to your price changes. And this simplicity falls apart very, very quickly. And you find yourself in a world where decision-making can become already much more complicated. So maybe let's get back to the original example that we have. So just a quick reminder, we have our offer here, 3 products, apples and pears. It's a standard simple example that we have. We have these people here in the middle that have different preferences, and we saw one way to make use of them is by converting them essentially into a demand function where we sort all of these people by their willingness to pay and then see how many we win if we reduce the price, how many we lose if we increase the price. And this is really where the price elasticity comes from. Thing is, and this also was captured by the increasing importance of elasticity, and as most of you, about 60% said that you've seen that elasticity, essentially the relationship between prices and sales volumes, has become more relevant over the past year. Also, what has become more available is probably the right technology to deal with these questions. And this is just what we quickly want to take a look at. And I'll change my screen for that. Well, if you can tell me when you see the new screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
So perfect. So here's a very simple example. So we're live in a very simplified world, not the super simplified world of price elasticities that we had with just one product. We already live in a world with 2 products, apples and pears. So we have like a fruit stand in front of our house. We sell apples, our neighbor sells pears, and we have people passing by who might be interested in either one. The cost of our product is 50 cents. We sell at 1.30. We've had some inflation in the past, so we increased our price, I think, from €1 to 1.30. And now we want to understand what happens with our sales as we sell these products. Let me move this screen a little. And so what we see is we have in this market total sales 444 units, and market is, because interested in apples and pears, is very similar. And we see that we sell both about 222 units. And we can also see that if, for example, we increase our price by 10 cents, that we lose a number of units. And because as it appears, interested in these 2 fruits is very similar, we have a rather high price elasticity. And already with a technology like this, which is, if you remember the picture I just showed a minute ago with all of these different people in these different colors, green, blue, red, each one with different preferences. And underneath this platform here is a similar technology where there are these different, we call them virtual shoppers, have different preferences. And they, based on these different preferences, make purchasing decisions. So in this case, we increased the price, lost 51 sales on the apple, about half of them, a bit more than half, went to the pears instead, and about half now say, with these prices, I don't want to buy anything at all. And an important feature here already, what you can cover with a technology like this, is that if you also increase the closest competitor, that our elasticity here goes from 3 to minus from -3 to -1.5. So you already see that it's already much more nuanced in the sense that it can react a system like this to changes not only in the own product, but also in the pricing of alternative products. So if we come back and look at, for example, the profit curves of these different products, we see that with our last price increase, we're a little bit too expensive. So our profit is optimized probably more at a price of 110 or €1. Let's do that. But we see that this puts our competitor out of the optimum. And if competitor also optimizes, then step by step, we see that we have become too expensive again. And this might go on for some while. And we all know this probably from university. This is the dynamic that also leads to something like a Nash equilibrium, where we now see that no one can improve further just on his or her own. And therefore, if at a price of €1 in this case for both competitors, this is already the optimal price, and no one has an incentive to make further changes. And just before we come back with a system like this, this was super simplified with just 2 fruits. Of course, you can also look at cases where you don't just have these 2 fruits, but you can essentially look at all the cases that are relevant for revenue management. So we have this base case that we just looked at, and let me just include the competition. So this was the case we just looked at. And we could say, okay, what happens if I reduce my price? If I go from 130 to 120, I will increase some of my sales, I will steal from my competitor, and I will also increase a little bit my profitability. This is what we just saw in the graph. But I can also look at what happens if instead of a price decrease, I might do a promotion, maybe 30% of the time. So roughly every third week, I run a promotion at €1, keep the other price the same. But I see that in this case, profitability is hurt a bit. I can also think about increasing values, so moving from an apple to a large apple, or I can also have, for example, a large apple and a small apple. And with a system like this, which I think is much more useful than the price elasticity we just have, we can look at really all of the promotion levers and the technology underneath. If you're interested, happy to discuss this more. It's really what we call virtual shoppers, and what they do is have a bunch of people with real cases that are parameterized from real sales data or survey data, and then they make decisions like real people. And with this system, you can make predictions then what will happen in the real world, not just with these simplistic or simplified examples. But if we go back to the presentation, of course, you can also do this with very realistic examples. And this is something we do with lots of our customers. And with that, I'll hand over back to Paul.
Sounds good. So thanks, Ingo, for the great insights and the session here. Lots of stuff to learn. And it's always a controversial topic, talking about elasticities and what their shortcomings are. Although I feel like most people I speak to intuitively know that there's something that's just not complete with that concept. So quite interesting. We also have a question in here in the Q&A that I want to read out to you. Felipe here is asking, hi Ingo, do you include the elasticity model price index or index price, versus competitors or other SKUs?
I'm not sure if I understood this one.
So basically my understanding is that they ask about whether you include the index price versus competitors. So let's say you're a premium brand, are you 30%, 50% above that competitor index? Are you a bit lower, just to kind of see where you are in that?
Yeah. So in this example, the simple example that we show, we were selling apples, our competitor was selling pears, and it considers like the actual prices, so not a price index versus competition, but the real prices. In this case, I think it was originally 130 for each. If the competitor increases from 130 to 140, this already has an impact on our sales. Likewise, if we reduce our price or increase the price, this will have an impact on us, of course, and also on the competitor. And one of the things is that you see is that, of course, if you are in a market, and let's take the original example, have an elasticity of -2, and then a competitor enters, your elasticity because of that competitor will typically increase. So in the sense that it goes maybe from -2 to -3 because the competitor is there. But again, if the competitor also increases price in the same way as you do, then this leads to a lower elasticity compared to a case where only you increase or decrease your price versus the competitor stays the same. So competitors have already many impacts on elasticity in this model.
Yeah, very interesting concept of, it's elasticity is subject to whether your competitors are doing something with their pricing, right? So, I mean, we all know Coke and Pepsi, they price pretty much together or in sequence. So what one does influences the other and vice versa. So it's very difficult to look at it in a vacuum.
So it depends, just to summarize, so it depends on the willingness to pay distribution of customers. So what are they willing to pay for a product, which is usually captured in the demand function, but it also depends on the full market structure, what competitors do, what they offer, and also what you have within your own portfolio. If you add further products to your portfolio, this of course impacts also the elasticity of your existing products.
Yeah, great. I think that's it in terms of questions that we can answer live here. I have another one coming in. Someone is asking, can you please elaborate a bit more on the virtual shopper concept? How are the results translated to demand curves?
Yeah, so the virtual shoppers, essentially what it is, a statistical model, and they have preference or willingness to pay for different products. Essentially, if you compare it to the original demand curve that I showed, you could see each one of these as a virtual shopper with having different willingness to pay. In this very simplistic example, let's say one has a willingness to pay for the product of €1, the next one 10, 120, 130, and so on. And the technology essentially goes through them and counts how many will buy the product at each given price. And in a more complex world, they're equipped with preferences for different product attributes, brands, product sizes, weights, other features. And based on that, they will make decisions between different products, between different brands, between different product variants, based on what the composition of these products are, what the features are, and the price of a product, and of course the price and the features of all the other products, just like real people would do. And this allows us the model to be very precise in predicting how demand for all the products will react to a change in pricing or change in PPA or change in promotion. And they are, in real examples, of course, parameterized using the typical data that comes from the industry, like sales data, like survey data, panel data, whatever is available. And we typically do a quick assessment of what data is available, what can be achieved with it, before we start working together.
All right. I don't see any question. It looks like we answered most of them in the session here. So let's go to the next slides here. I just want to quickly highlight our next session in 2 weeks on pricing and revenue management with AI and machine learning. Talk about buzzwords here, of course, elasticity this week and AI in 2 weeks. So quite an interesting one as well. And then in the last August webinar, we'll have another Buynomics expert talk. So these are our recurring events where experts from the industry or academia are talking about topics in pricing, in revenue management. Some are book authors, professors, and it's always a super interesting deep dive between Ingo and those experts. So